Today's lesson is going to be a little bit of a review. We started off our year talking about rational numbers and how we convert between fractions, decimals, and percentages. And today we're going to bring it back, especially after finishing our unit on studying ratios and proportions. Because when we're dealing with percents and their percent applications, those proportion skills are going to come in big. They're going to be a big help. So today's lesson is all about percents and decimals. And we're going to be focusing on converting between fractions, decimals, and percentages. We've talked about this before, but percent means a ratio of a number to 100. Literally, per means out of, and cent, if we talk about century, centimeter, cents out of a dollar, those all have a Latin root of cent, which means 100. Example 1 is talking about writing percents as a decimal. And over in this box over here, we've got our key idea, writing percents as decimals. To do that, we're going to remove the percent symbol and then divide by 100. Dividing by 100 is exactly the same thing as moving the decimal point 2 places to the left. Remember the cloud of fractions, decimals, and percents? When I'm going from decimal or percent to decimal, my arrow is moving to the left. And that's why my decimal is going to the left. But it is also because when we're dividing by powers of 10, we can move that decimal to the left. We're going to do an example here of 52%. 52%. We're going to drop that percent sign. So I'm going to write 52. And then even though there's not a decimal there, we're going to write it at the end because remember a whole number does have a decimal, we just don't have to write it. That decimal is going to then move 2 places to the left, which would be the same as 52 hundredths. This makes sense because if we think about percent as out of 100, 52 out of 100 is also said as 52 hundredths, which my decimal representation down here is 52 hundredths. So those are the same. Now I'm going to put one on the screen and I want you to give it a shot. First one I want you to do would be 7%. Go ahead and give it a shot. Try. For example 2, this time we're going to go from decimals and we're going to write them as percent. So we're kind of doing the reverse of what we just did. Over here in the text box, got the key ideas here. This time instead of dividing by 100, we're going to be multiplying by 100. And multiplication by 100 is exactly the same thing as moving the decimal to places, is moving the decimal 2 places to the right. Then, because we are changing it from a decimal to percent, we've got to add on that percent symbol. Here is an example. We are going to do 1 8/10 as our example. I'm going to take the decimal that already exists. We're going to move it 2 places to the right because we are multiplying by 100. Since I have an empty whoop-de-woo, it's a very scientific term, whoop-de-woo, we're going to put a 0 as a placeholder. So this 1 8/10 now becomes 180%. And that's my answer. So 1 8/10 is the same thing as 180%. So here's an example I want you to give a shot and see how you do. We have 9 thousandths. I want you to write 9 thousandths as a percent. Example 3 is asking us to apply our knowledge of rational number conversions to a real-world situation. On a math test, you rocked it, and you got 92 out of a possible 100 points. Which of the following is not another way of expressing 92 out of 100? And it's giving us 4 options here. We have a ratio 23 to 25, 92%, 17 over 20, and then 92 hundredths. We've got to figure out which ones of these are not equivalent. First of all, we're going to take a peek at our first ratio, 23 out of 25. And before we do anything there, let's take a look at this business right here, the initial ratio, 92 out of a possible 100. Well, if you got 92 out of 100, remember percents mean out of 100. So this is the equivalent to a 92%. And that'll help us identify some of those equivalencies. But here, what we're trying to figure out is, okay, I've got 23 over 25. I want to know what percent that would be. What's my score? So there's going to be this missing amount here we don't know. We can solve this proportion a couple of different ways. This is why that proportion is really important here. First of all, we can do that mental math method because 25 and 100 are compatible and do 25 times 4 and then 23 times 4. So 23 times 4, let's work that out up here. 92, I think. So 4 times 3 is 12. 2 times 4 is 8. Plus 1 is 9. So 23 out of 25 is actually a 92%. Because it's 92 out of 100, which is the same thing we got up here. And 92 over 100 is 92%. So we're looking for which one's not another way of writing it, but A is another way. And then B, we already know that 92 out of 100 is 92%, so B cannot be an option. And then if we look at D, skipping over there, since fractions can kind of be messy, we have decimals. We're going to move it 2 places to the right to make it a percent. Moving that decimal 2 places to the right is the same thing as multiplying by 100. Tack on that percent sign at the end, and we got 92%, which is what we're trying to identify. Process of elimination here means that 17/20 has to be not equivalent to 92%. But let's go ahead and figure that one out. So 17 out of 20, trying to figure out what percent that is. So gotta put in something over here for 100. Now you can do your cross products or your mental math. On the first ratio we did mental math, and we could definitely do that here because 20 and 100 are compatible. But just for giggles, let's practice our cross products, or Billy Bob Joe the butterfly. 20 times P is equal to 1,700 because 17 times 100 is 1,700. Divide both sides by 20. Those 1 out. So P is equal to, I can cancel those zeros because it's like dividing by 10. 170 divided by 2 would be, I think, 85%. So 85, P would be 85 over 100, which is the same thing as 85%. And 85% is not the same thing as 92%. So our answer is C. Bottom line, it's really important to understand how to convert between fractions, decimals, and percents. When you're dealing with those 3 different forms of rational numbers, converting between them helps you work with them, helps you compare, order, figure out what you're talking about, because if you have different forms, you really want them to be in the same form. If you have a percent and a fraction, you want them to both be in percent so you can compare them.